All right, let's talk about the final project for a minute. First, I'm going to tell you about the requirements and expectations of the final project, and then I'm going to introduce you to the client. So on our course syllabus for this semester, you're going to notice that the final project is made up of 30% of your grade. 20% of that score is going to come from me, and 10% of that score is going to come from your peers in the form of 2 peer evaluations, which I'll talk about more in just a minute. So you're going to be placed in permanent groups, which you will be working in for the rest of the semester, and your group is going to create one document for your final project. You have been creating an SRS document for the rich and famous car rental company throughout this entire semester. The final project is going to be to create the same SRS document except for a different client. You're going to be doing it as a group, and you'll have the rest of the semester to work on it. We will continue several more chapters through the book, but you will have the rest of the semester to work on this SRS document for the client that I will introduce to you at the end of this video. There is a module in Canvas under the final project, and it lists all of the requirements and expectations along with some detailed information. And so if you'll notice, there is a link for an SRS rough draft. You are going to have roughly 3 weeks from Monday, from the start of class on Monday, 3 weeks as a group to put together and to create your first draft of your SRS document. Now, there are certain expectations for this particular SRS document. If you click on that link, it will give you some detailed information about what is expected as a part of that SRS document. The instructions are written not only in this assignment link, but I've also given you, I've also copied it into a PDF file which you can quickly read and access and download. So let's take a look at the SRS document for your final project. There'll be a specific format for the report. It is going to include a cover page, a table of contents, and once again you're going to want to make sure that that is a hyperlink to the correct pages in your document. There will be a customer statement of requirements, which is going to be a 2-page narrative about the project. There's going to be a glossary of terms. We've already done that in your regular SRS document. You will be listing functional requirements, including the stakeholders, the actors, and the goals. You will have a list of use cases and diagrams. And then you will have a list of the non-functional requirements. You can either use the FERPS Plus, as we did in your original SRS document, or you can use the 4 non-functional requirements as detailed in our textbook. And then, of course, there will be a reference section, which is going to include references to any of the documents and the materials that you receive from the client. So the next portion of this gives an expectation of this 2-page customer statement of requirements. And so you can read about the expectation of that particular part of the document. As for your UML diagrams, the reader of the document can clearly decide what these diagrams are referencing. Provide some sort of a narrative. Don't just put a diagram on there with no label, no heading, no explanation. It will be too difficult to understand for the casual reader of this document. The instructions continue with part 2, the effort breakdown. You are going to include a table showing the breakdown of the effort for each of the team members based upon the different sections of the SRS document. And so the responsibility matrix is shown here. So you'll list out the names of each one of the team members, and then you are going to show how much effort they have put into each one of the individual responsibility levels. Now, if you'll notice, say for instance, team member 1 only worked on 2 of the sections of the SRS document, which is perfectly acceptable. Team member 2 worked on 2. He was 100% responsible for the glossary of terms and about 60% responsible for the functional requirements. So you'll fill out this effort breakdown table, and it has two purposes. The first is to make sure that you are distributing the work among the team members equally, so that there is not one team member who is doing all the work and the rest of the team members are not doing any work at all. And this also helps me as an instructor to determine the grades for each one of the members of the team. We also have a anonymous team evaluation, or excuse me, team member evaluation, peer evaluation, which I'll be talking about in just a minute. All right, so report preparation. You are going to be creating an electronic document that will have hyperlinks to different points based upon your table of contents. This is the breakdown for the grading of the report. Do not give me anything that is hand-drawn. You're going to be using electronic tools to create all the diagrams, the entire document, the cover page, all of it must be electronically generated. Do not hand draw any of it. Also, it is important that your project is sufficiently ambitious. And so don't submit to me a 3-page SRS as a part of the team effort on this project. It also should demonstrate the fact that you have learned something in this class over the semester, to demonstrate the skills for the diagramming and the tools and the activities that we have done as a part of the semester and will continue to do. You're going to want to make sure that all of the team members are familiar with the entire report, because there will be a group presentation at the end, and you're going to want to make sure that it looks professional. And to that end, you are going to be submitting a hard copy report to me. So not only will you be submitting it electronically in Canvas, but you will also be printing and binding a hard copy of this SRS document, which you will be sending to me by mail if you live far away, or bringing to my office on the Davis campus, or you can leave in the office on the Ogden campus during finals week. And we will talk more about this printed brochure. Must be printed and bound, not in a 3-ring binder, but some kind of a binding and given to me in hard copy. And we'll talk more about the due date on that in just a minute. Now, I know that this document mentions having two bound hard copy reports. You are only going to be creating one hard copy report. I need to update this document. In the past, we have had a live client that our 2450 students have been working with. But the department has determined that 2450 should be an teaching environment, and so we are using a real-life scenario for a client, but not a live client. Therefore, you only need to create one hardbound copy of the document to present to me. In the past, you would have given one to the client and one to the instructor, but for our purposes now, you just need to create one. All right, so I'm going to go back to the final project module in Canvas, and by the Friday of this week, I expect your group to come up with what I call a group plan. It is the first link in the final project module. And what it is just a summary of your plan for the next several weeks. Where do you plan on going now? What do you plan on doing? Who is going to be doing what work? Who will be assigned what? Who will be responsible for what? It's probably going to be a good idea for you to have what is called a client meeting. You're going to need to come up with a list of questions that you have for the client and present them as a document to the client so that you can sit down electronically, of course, with the client and have a conversation to better understand the requirements. The rich and famous car rental scenario was laid out as clearly as possible. On the other hand, the client that you're going to receive for your final project is probably not going to be as clearly defined. Most of the time, the clients don't have a truly clear understanding of what it is that you want. So there's a very good chance that you're going to have several client meetings to ask some of the questions that you have to clarify any points that you need. And so this group plan is going to give you a chance to start thinking about, on the group level, who is going to be doing what, when is it going to be done, and then what is the schedule for a client meeting. Those will be scheduled in advance, and we'll be conducting those on Canvas through our conference feature. I will present a video on the conference feature, because we're going to be doing several of our conferences on Canvas for this final project. All right, so the group plan will be due by Friday at midnight. Then if we go back to our final project module, the rough draft, your first draft of your SRS document is going to be due in exactly 3 weeks. That will be due by Sunday, November 9th at midnight. Within 24 hours of submitting that first draft of the SRS document, each team member is going to be submitting a peer evaluation. And there is an Excel spreadsheet with some detailed information on how you are going to be anonymously grading each of the members of your group based upon their participation and the activity that they have done to date toward the final project. Now, this is an anonymous evaluation. You will be submitting it to me for credit. I will be compiling the information that I have gotten from all of the members of your group, and I will be giving out grades to each one of the students. And I will also send you a list of the comments, the written comments that you have received from your peers anonymously. So you'll not know who it's coming from, but you will get some feedback on what they are thinking about your participation within the group. If you do not submit a peer evaluation, you will automatically receive a 0 on this particular assignment. Remember, 10% of the 30% of your final project grade is based upon peer evaluations. And so if you don't submit a peer evaluation, you'll automatically receive a 0 on it. So it is critically important that you complete peer evaluations within 24 hours after submitting that first draft, the rough draft of your SRS document. All right, so if we go back to the module on the final project, you'll notice after the peer evaluation, you will have a second group plan. The week after you've submitted your document, I'll give you a few days that next week to think about where to go next. And so there is a second group plan where you are going to indicate a little bit more, all right, now where do we go from here? And to just map out a plan. Do we need any more client meetings? Okay, now that we have this rough draft done, let's regroup, rethink, where are we going to go from here? That second group plan will be due the week after you've submitted your original document, the original draft of the SRS. Then you will have 2 weeks after that to create a first draft or a draft of an SDD, a software design document. A software design document is made up of several different parts. One of the parts is the feasibility analysis with a cost evaluation with the break-even point and the diagram that we created in Chapter 3. You're going to be conducting a feasibility analysis with all of the diagrams, and then you're going to be giving an estimate for the cost of this particular project. You are a software development firm, and a client has approached you to find out how much it would take and what it would take to develop a specific software program for them. One of the things that I would indicate here is that the class has been broken up into a number of groups. Each of the groups are going to be working on the same final project. Each of the groups will have the same client, because as a client, they're going to go to several different software development firms, present their proposed software to them, and then the different software development firms are going to compete for the business. And so ultimately, only one of the teams will win the contract for the business, and the team that wins the contract will get full scores for the final project, and all of the rest of the team will get reduced points. Now, that doesn't mean that the other teams can't get an A on the final project. It only means that the winning team, the winning group that gets the contract from the client, will be the only group that gets 100% of the points. All of the rest of the team will get a reduced points, but that doesn't mean they still can't get A's. So you're going to want to include a feasibility analysis with the break-even point, with the diagrams, and with a final estimate for your software project. You're also going to want to include some mock-up screens for the system interfaces, and that will be covering more in Chapter 10. So for now, keep in mind that you will have to give some full details of the interfaces for your final project. for the project. You're going to have to tell us what you expect the screens to look like, but we'll do more of that in Chapter 10. So this software development document, including that information, is going to be due on November 23rd. You'll have 2 weeks to create this software development document as you detail the final project. So the first draft of the software design document is going to be due November 23rd. There will be no second draft of this document. Instead, the information that you have created as a part of this software design document will be embedded back into the original SRS. So there will not be a second draft of this document. You will incorporate this information into the original SRS. All right, so the next thing is a presentation and a brochure. During the week before finals, you are going to be doing presentations before the client. As a group, you're going to create a PowerPoint presentation or another presentation of your choice. You're going to have the client before you as a team, and you're going to be pitching your product to the client in an effort to win the bid for this particular software project. And so you're going to need to create a PowerPoint presentation that lists the highlights of this particular project that you are doing. If you click on the link, it shows you, I have a little humorous video that I found in here, absolutely hilarious, about some of the mistakes people make when they're creating PowerPoint presentations. So the presentation needs to include several different sections, such as introducing all of the team members and giving an overview of the project and the feasibility study, so that on the PowerPoint presentation they can see a breakdown of the cost and the final estimate for it. You're going to give some general system functionality. You're going to show some of the user interfaces, the screens that the user is going to see as they're working on the software that you have created. And then you're going to give the client a time for QA at the end. You'll have a maximum of 20 minutes for your presentation, a maximum of 20 minutes. Now, if the Q&A period goes over time, that is acceptable, but do not give a 3-minute presentation and then 17 minutes for Q&A. Keep your presentation to somewhere around 17, 18, 19 minutes. Give the client some time to follow up with any questions that they may have. This presentation is also going to come with a tri-fold brochure. So think of a single piece of single sheet of 8.5 by 11 inch paper that is folded into 3 sections. This is the takeaway that you would give to the client during the presentation, because they don't have the SRS document yet, and the SRS document is going to be very, very lengthy and in-depth. This trifold brochure, on the other hand, is just one single piece of paper that you can send the client home with that highlights all of the features that they saw, not only in their presentation, but the added detail that would be included as a part of your SRS. So you want to keep this as a summary, and you want to make sure that they have something to take home with them. So we're going to be doing presentations as a group. You will be doing your presentation as a group on Canvas's conference feature before the client, and then give the client a chance to answer any questions that they may have. On the feedback that you received during that presentation, the last part of the project is then going to be to update your SRS document with any feedback that you got during that presentation, during that client time, and then you are going to submit that final SRS document during finals week. And it will be due by no later than Tuesday, December 9th of finals week. You will have 24 hours after that final document is submitted to complete your second peer evaluation. You'll notice this peer evaluation is due within 24 hours of the final submission of the SRS document. And this is going to give you your second chance to grade, to evaluate your peers based upon their performance and their energy and their activities within the group. Once again, this will be anonymous evaluation as well. You'll be submitting it to me. I will bring all the information together. I will give each of the students in your group a grade based upon that peer review. And I will also return to you a list of the comments that you may have received from your individual peers, but of course that will come back to you anonymously. Again, if you do not submit this second evaluation, regardless of the score that you get from your peers, you will automatically receive a 0 on it. So it is critically important that you are completing these peer evaluations to let us know how the rest of the people within your group are doing. As I mentioned before, you need to submit to me a hard copy of your SRS document. I would strongly encourage you not to print the document until after the presentation the week before finals, because there is a very good chance that the client is going to make suggestions and say, what about this? I didn't understand this. Can you clarify this? And based upon the feedback that you receive as a part of that PowerPoint presentation, you're probably going to want to update that document, that SRS, one final time. And so if you have it printed and submitted and ready to go for that presentation, you might find yourself with some added cost to have to print it again. So the final thing that you're going to be submitting is one single SRS document that has the SDD, software design document information, incorporated into it, along with a trifold brochure. You're going to want to print off that trifold brochure to submit with your hard copy SRS as well.